Welcome back, everybody. Today we're discussing Westworld and the simulation within a simulation. If you're new to the channel, welcome. Thank you so much for being here. You are truly appreciated. Be sure to subscribe if you like this video and turn on notifications so that you're in the know whenever new videos come out. Now, let's talk simulation. During my last video, I laughed at this line, stating more or less that I wasn't going to touch it even if HBO offered me my janitor position that I've worked for my entire YouTube career. The reason was obvious. At the time, it was a clear jab at the community for our speculations about the Cradle or the Forge in Season 2. Long before the full details of the Cradle were shown to us, I theorized about its purpose and the oddities surrounding Bernard in the 2-week later storyline. One of my most popular theories, Cats in the Cradle, detailed that the Bernard that we were seeing might simply be the Cradle version of him for either interrogation purposes or even maybe himself using the Cradle to see what happened to the park and try to figure out how to proceed using this simulation. Now, that turned out to be wrong, which is fine. I don't theory craft for bragging rights. I do it because I like the show and, like all YouTubers, seek validation from the masses. But why are we here? Well, because this passing line, clearly crafted to bait this discussion, won't leave me alone. It's honestly the first thing I think of when I recall this episode. I can't shake it. So now I'm here to pick it apart with the genius bar that is my community. Also, because I got a ton of comments from people that were looking for my analysis of this line in that first review, and were disappointed that I just joked it off.
Just think about this for 1 second. How fucking ironic would it be if they had put a simulation within a simulation? That's a massive fuck you.
So let's start with what he could be referring to. Since he's aware of Rehoboam, he's likely worried about being a part of a simulation currently being controlled by something that he can't see the operators of. Him worrying about a simulation is nothing new. I mean, for years, long before simulations existed, the same could be said about dreaming. While you're in a dream, you don't know the difference between you dreaming or you being awake. Of course, there is some stipulations there, but both apply pretty evenly. It's impossible to know if you're in a simulation currently, and as such, simulation theory exists. Esteemed philosopher Rene Descartes tackles this paradox with a famous line, "I think, therefore I am," simply meaning it doesn't matter if you are or if you are not, because it's the thought of you considering the world around you that makes you human, which probably also inspired the showrunners with their line, "If you can't tell the difference, does it really matter?" Rehoboam presents an interesting and yet super familiar aspect to this story, the strategy engine of the world. From the first episode, we can deduce the power of this machine is something beyond reproach, with a loosely defined record of saving the world.
What are you being feted for this time?
Well, I can't even remember.
For saving the world through algorithms, or for being the son of the guy who saved the world.
We know it's run by Insight, a company that appears to reach all levels of wealth, from the wealthy elite to the hourly workers of the world. Our theories before the reveal of this machine discussed this concept of determinism, and in the world of Westworld, how they flat out reduced the human experience to 10,247 lines of code, which means our deterministic non-free will paths through life are much easier to predict than we currently believe them to be. The only thing a theoretical system like this would need to make those predictions is the data. So how do we gather that? Well, we create an incentive program that rewards you for passively living your life. We promise a better life with more happiness and mask it with a price, which gives us the impersonation of a company that's just doing this for the money, when in reality, we're doing it in exchange for your data. Fast forward to 2058, and we have a machine with the world participating. It's the norm. It's turning off your implant being frowned upon. It's weird. Now, possessing this large enough data set on humanity leads to predictive capabilities. If you need proof that this is happening in the show, look no further than these two lines.
If I was going to tell you, he'd know already. Rehoboam would tell him. I'd already be dead.
He has a system. He's probably looking for you right now.
An almighty machine with a mystery man as the only person who knows the intimate details of how it works. A man that has gained untold fortune and has reach and control beyond our wildest dreams. What more could he want? What more could he realistically gain by using a simulation of the future? Luckily for us, in this first episode, we got an interesting conversation that might point us in the right direction.
Like the shit show at Delos.
Why would that concern us at all?
Call it a wild guess.
We know Insight has a secret interest in Delos, or Westworld specifically, and I doubt they are interested in the host technology. The only other thing that we know of them doing is looking for immortality, or trying to emulate immortality, of which we know that they failed terribly in season 2. But they were relatively closer than they ever were before.
Another year or two, they might crack it. Get a version of you that's viable long term.
At the end of season 2, Dolores sends all of this data to a secret location alongside the Valley Beyond, meaning this could be his motivation in season 3, getting that back, and maybe why we see him sending Maeve to do his bidding at some point in this season. Which is interesting because we know that more or less he can see the future. He has this machine that simulates the happenings of the world. Why not just send an army to capture Dolores, or, nuke her from the sky with future technology? I don't know. But I do have a couple theories. The first being that Rehoboam could have never foreseen the hosts becoming conscious, because that would mean that it's trying to understand something that it was programmed to never consider: free will. Since they're making the claims that humans are deterministic, true free will may be impossible to track. So it's possible that Serac's motivation is learning how to acquire this for himself, because in a world that's tracked by machines that can see the future, the untrackable is God. But all of that is speculation, which brings me to the second theory, being that we don't know if Dolores is untrackable. Everything that we've seen her do could have been allowed by Serac because he knows the ultimate end result and isn't fazed by her actions. He knows that he's going to win at some point, which brings me to one of my favorite topics: simulation omniscience. I used this concept in my own writing. It was incredibly fun and challenging to write. It's how do you beat someone who knows every step that you're going to take before you take it? One for one, he knows the outcome and exactly what will happen between point A and point B. Without having access to that data, you would be fated to your deterministic choices as you would naturally make them. You would just act as you think you would, and it would already know how you are going to act. But if you can see the steps that you'll be taking ahead of time, you can then choose not to take them, which would then produce another set of results other than the first until you have a favorable outcome. Depending on how they choose to write this, it can be paradoxical. But I believe that this will be the case because they made a point to bring up the fact that Liam only has read access, meaning write access is the thing that she's after. So until Dolores has access to this machine, which I believe she'll still use it to undo humanity in some kind of way, Serac will be able to see the steps and then alter the course of actions as he sees fit. The only way to beat someone with this powerful tool is to find a weakness in it, which may be what Dolores is already trying to do and we just don't know it yet. Outliving the operator seems like the best option for a robot that will live forever. However, I don't see that as the plot for season 3, unless of course, she tries that, and that's when he sends Maeve to get her. Because, she becomes a threat when she doesn't engage. If she just tries to wait him out, then he will always lose, forcing his hand to advance. But let's also go back and assume that the weakness is this lack of understanding of free will, and Rehoboam just simply cannot process what true, genuine free will is because it's observing humans who don't have that, meaning that the hosts are the weakness, the hosts that have this consciousness and maintain this ability. Dolores may already be invisible to this machine, other than what people around her are observing about her, people that have the implant turned on. I think that replacing Martin with a machine would 100% land her on the Rehoboam radar, because this would be a person that's super close to the machine that has now gone dark, and they could notice that this person isn't reporting data back to Rehoboam, possibly alerting Serac to the fact that something is up. Now, I'm pretty far down the rabbit hole here. I totally get that, but I don't think anything is inherently wrong with the argument. I think the logic is sound, other than the fact that I'm making a ton of assumptions about a sci-fi show on HBO, meaning this machine could behave however the showrunners want it to behave. My theories be damned, but man, it is certainly fun telling them, and as such, the pièce de résistance. Simulation within a simulation. Again, this entire thing could be a bait. It probably is. The humor of the writing is not lost on me. But because this is a future-telling machine and it exists, I think it's only fair to say that at some point we will see it used. It would be a pretty neat reveal to see Serac using the simulation, trying to determine the correct path that leads to his preferred outcome, stopping Dolores and regaining control of the data locked away somewhere that only Dolores knows. Or it's possible that Dolores is using the machine, having used the free will as the Achilles tendon to a machine that may only know how to read deterministic humans humans. I believe that we'll see one of these in the show at some point during season 3 if we haven't yet already, and as such, a simulation within a simulation. Some things are pretty interesting about this first episode. The text that Martin discovered on first watch appears to be purposeful, so that Dolores could get him alone, where he could then be replaced. However, if you consider the verbiage was an underpass on the east side, that's also where she meets Caleb. The text could be applying to him. Caleb, someone who just so happens to not have his implant turned on, and as such wouldn't be inputting data to Rehoboam, which would make him the perfect accomplice for this blind spot approach. Also consider the fact that she's shot multiple times and chooses to feel the pain, because think back to when she's shot by William, she learns of this advantage to not feel pain, how superior they really are to the human body. She knows how to rebuild hosts. I think it's safe to assume that she can turn off those damaged sensors, because again, it's superficial. She is purposely choosing to be hurt, to feel this damage, and I think it's entirely fair to question why. Possibly manipulating the course of events with Caleb, who is now finding a girl that needs to be saved. But with that, we come to the end of the video. My final verdict is that it's plausible. The reason I didn't cover this in my episode 1 review is because it's likely just a passing line to poke fun at the hardcore fans and people crazy enough to make this video, but I do see a route in which this could exist as foreshadowing. So I think it makes a fun theory. I think it makes a sound theory, but Westworld showrunners promised a much easier to follow storyline this season, and I don't know if that aligns exactly with this. It may, but either way, I had fun writing this, and I truly hope that you enjoyed stepping back into the world of Westworld and theory crafting alongside with me. I hope to see your comments below. Could you see this happening? Am I missing something glaringly obvious that would Trojan horse this theory? If so, please let me know. This channel is made possible with the people that support me on Patreon. Our top tier donors this month are Micheal, Linck, Robert Holtz, Logan, Jeff Chunn, and Feewet. The channel is booming right now. Thank you guys so much, man. The new people that are sharing this video on social media, liking, subscribing, thank you all for being here. And yeah, as the season goes on, if you do want to help me make these videos, please consider supporting me on Patreon. Much love, everybody, and I can't wait to talk to you all again soon.